the curtain so that you can get a glimpse of what's happening here in West Michigan. We'll do that today with our guest, Sheriff Michelle LaJoye.
Corp Magazine presents the CEO Spotlight, an exclusive presentation of News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
Sheriff, welcome in. We appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Interesting times to be in, and certainly to be in law enforcement as we look at some of the things. But I'll tell you, in West Michigan, some of the things that happen throughout the country, we're not immune to, but we also have a different way of handling things. And I think that some of the things we'll talk about today is maybe what that looks like here in West Michigan. So first and foremost, let's dive in, because I know recently we've seen, not only throughout the nation, but we've seen a kind of an uptick in some of the violence and some of the crime. We've seen auto dealerships broken into. We've seen these random shootings, or what appear to be, maybe they're gang related, maybe they have some sort of connection that we're not really aware of. But to me, a lot of it looks like people who don't in things, and especially our young people in the community who don't maybe necessarily have an outlet for a constructive way to express energy in a lot of different ways. And we're seeing that, I think, all over in a time where people want to come together and figure out how can we make this stop? What can we do? And I know there's a group of folks, you included in that's working to put an end to that.
Right. So, Justin, first, I want to say, yes, it has been unprecedented times. And I think that although we do often see an uptick in violence and the same types of violence that we're seeing now over summer months, this is far beyond what we've seen in previous years. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the COVID lockdowns and the lack of other constructive things to do for young people. So that's a factor in it. But I think with that, we also see when somebody doesn't have something constructive, they often don't see their part in the community. They don't see how they're a part of that community, vibrant environment. They don't see how investing in themselves is important, and they don't see themselves part of the future of that community. So I think those are all things that we need to work together as a community to resolve, because it's not going to resolve without us working together. That's some of the initiatives that you've seen us talking about. Cure Violence is one of them, where really has to do with outreach and reaching out to young people and making sure they know they're important and that they have a vested interest in their own future and in their own environment. And then also working to try to make sure every incident that does happen, we resolve it from a law enforcement standpoint, so that the victims of crime understand we are working on their behalf, and we will continue to do so.
Yeah, West Michigan is a special place. We got people coming together from all walks of life and all different parts of the community to make sure that we address these issues, and I know you're part of that group. What can we do to support? I know our audience, Wood Radio audience, the listeners here, support law enforcement. We want to make sure you have the tools. We want to make sure that you have everything you need to get the job done and to be safe. We're seeing some things across the country. I know it's different here, but we're seeing some things across the country that I think have a lot of people concerned, where police departments and law enforcement is being defunded, called into question. This Ferguson effect that often occurs, where if police are going to be questioned for every move, that a lot of times they'll move back, and then you'll see, luckily we haven't seen that here, but you see a real uptick like we've seen in New York City and some of these other places where police they can't get involved. Either they've been told not to, or maybe they don't want to because they're afraid they're going to lose their job or going to get hurt or something even worse. So what can we do as citizens here in West Michigan to make sure we're supporting you and to make sure that you have everything that you need to keep the community safe?
The Kent County Sheriff's Department in general, we serve a population in this community that is incredibly supportive. We get cards, letters, calls daily that say thank you for your service. I've been out and about in the community and talking to people, making sure that we're meeting their needs. And by and large, everybody is very happy with their service. That being said, they want to know that police departments are doing what it takes to ensure that we don't have an incident like what we have seen in some isolated circumstances throughout the country, where officers are acting with malice or officers are acting ill prepared for what they're going to come across. So we work very hard at making sure our training standards are in place, that we've put the right officers out there, and then that we support those officers emotionally. We've prepared them technically. We give them the right supervision and oversight, and we constantly monitor to make sure that they're meeting the needs. They've got the skill set to meet the needs. And I think those two things really matter together, to make sure that we have a police department or a sheriff's department that's prepared for service. So I think that's really important. But, if you're asking what citizens can do to help, one, we're able to resolve crime. It just doesn't get any more basic than that. So if you see something, you need to report it. You need to participate in resolving issues for the department. So that's really, really important. Silent Observer is a wonderful component here in West Michigan. It's an organization that focuses on being able to take in tips from the community. If you wish to be anonymous, you can remain anonymous and still do your part as a resident here. There are rewards if your information leads to the resolution of a crime. And there are some parameters that you can look for on the Silent Observer website. That's also a really good place if you are interested in contributing financially to a resolution. Silent Observer is a good organization to become involved in. And there are a bunch of other organizations, and there are some links that I can forward to you later, that you could contribute to some of the outreach programs that we're trying to work to get established and also to allow to flourish. They're already working programs. Cure Violence is the initiative. And there are some programs that work on walking beside some young people in the community in some of the at-risk neighborhoods. But when I say an at-risk neighborhood, understand that all of our neighborhoods are at risk if we're not pouring into young people. We all have to do that. That's everybody's role. So I think those things together can work to try to build forward. But this is one of those years that is very, very different. And a lot of the things that we've done historically aren't sufficient to meet our current needs. So everybody does have to dig deep right now.
Sheriff Michelle LaJoye Young's here with us to talk a little bit about some of those things that are happening and the efforts to stop the violence and, of course, the crime that we've seen in the communities. We have a different sort of, we talk a little bit about this, but it's a spirit of collaboration here in this community, business, public, private, everybody working together, and in a lot of ways to make sure, and we've seen that with these recent efforts. What do you notice about West Michigan that really sort of sets that tone in your experience, in your vast experience with the sheriff's department? I mean, you've been recently the sheriff, but you've been in this community and in the law enforcement and with the sheriff's department for years.
Right. Yeah, 31 years at the Kent County Sheriff's Department. And I hesitate telling people that because it makes me feel really old to say out loud, but I've been the sheriff for the last 2. And, as I meet with sheriffs from across the country, I would say West Michigan is an incredibly supportive community compared to many other communities, that people are asking, what can I do to help? And then they follow through on doing something to help. And that really makes a difference in our communities. That is how issues are resolved. That is how we build on past experiences, past successes, and make them future accomplishments as well, and even more powerfully. So it's a really great community to be a law enforcement department in. But we all have to work together to keep that moving forward. And for those in our community who do not feel served, we need to make sure we're adapting our resources, adapting our practices, adapting our understanding to better meet those needs, because this community will continue to change. Our demographics are changing, our diversity is changing, and these are all wonderful assets for West Michigan. But it does mean our industries have to change, our social agencies have to change, and we're leaning forward to make sure we understand how to do that effectively too, with the help of the community, informed by the community.
Yeah, I think the last thing anybody wants to see is like a Portland or like even a New York City, where some of these places, I mean, gosh, I hate to say it, but Kenosha, Wisconsin, not too different from where we are, right across the lake, and you would ask a business or someone, would you like to relocate your business to one of these areas? Would you like to have a convention in one of these areas? Would you like to move to one of these areas? And their answer is probably going to be pretty obvious. It's going to be a pretty obvious no. In West Michigan, we pride ourselves on having this great area, this kind of like hidden gem where we can live and enjoy so many different pieces of quality of life. Let me ask you, last but not least, I know it's an election year, and the campaign heating up for you, and you've gotten several major endorsements from folks in law enforcement, prosecutor, things like that. What are you hearing as you're knocking on doors and talking to people? I know you're in my neighborhood this weekend, so putting those signs out. What are the things that people are saying to you?
I think everybody is very interested in making sure that our community remains safe, and they want to do whatever they can to support law enforcement to keep the community safe. They also, again, and I'll emphasize this, they want us to be cognizant of the need to continue to sharpen our skills and make sure our techniques are those that meet everybody's needs, and they urge me to continue to make this department the most professional department we can. But everybody is very happy to have the service they have. I get a lot of compliments about the way the deputies manage themselves on scenes, and I really appreciate those comments from people. But yeah, we are very lucky to have the department we do, but it takes more than luck. It takes a lot of hard work. And they just urge me to continue that work forward and build on the successes we have.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you, we're praying for you, and we think about you and all the men and women who are out there in harm's way on a daily basis to keep us safe. And just know that you've got a lot of support and people that are thinking about you and sending prayers your way. Even in the chat here on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube, where we stream this live. If you want to go back and watch it, you can go back and watch it live on those channels, on the video as well. Plus, you can look for it later online at woodradio.com. But that's Sheriff Michelle LaJoye Young. Thank you very much for joining us today for a Court Magazine CEO Spotlight.
Thank you very much, and we feel the prayers. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Make it a great day. Always a pleasure. And, of course, if you want to hear this again, you can. Just go online, woodradio.com. And, of course, the iHeartRadio app. Just search West Michigan Live. Back with more good news you won't want to miss right after this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you again. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.